Ever wondered if your childhood teddy bear had a soul, or perhaps the sturdy oak tree in your backyard? Welcome to the world of animism. Now let's get one thing clear. This isn't about your teddy bear coming to life a la Toy Story, but rather it's an exploration of the belief system that perceives all things, animate and inanimate, to possess a spiritual essence. Yes, even that pebble you casually kicked away last Tuesday. Animism, a term coined by anthropologist Sir Edward Tyler in the late 19th century, is perhaps the oldest form of spiritual belief on this blue marble we call Earth. It's the cosmological adhesive that binds the natural world with the spiritual, suggesting that all objects, places and creatures possess a distinct spiritual essence. This isn't just about the big things like mountains, rivers or trees either. Oh no, it's also about the small things, the rocks, the flowers, the shells on the beach. In the world of animism, everything has a story to tell, a spirit to reveal. In the ancient world, animism was as common as unsliced bread. From the Aboriginal Australians to the indigenous tribes of the Americas, this belief system was as ubiquitous as the air they breathed. It was a way of understanding, respecting, and coexisting with the world around them, a world that was simultaneously mundane and magical. And before you dismiss it as a relic of the past, hold your horses. Animism is far from extinct. In fact, it's alive and thriving, subtly shaping the principles of many contemporary spiritual practices and even influencing the ways we engage with our environment. So, if you've ever felt an inexplicable connection to inanimate objects or nature, chances are you might just be a bit of an animist. It's the whisper of the wind through the trees, the gentle hum of a river, the silent, stoic presence of a mountain. It's a belief that the world is alive in ways we don't quite understand, and maybe, just maybe, it's not as absurd as it sounds. So, if you've ever felt an inexplicable connection to inanimate objects or nature, chances are you might just be a bit of an animist. Let's journey back in time to the very dawn of spiritual consciousness. A time when the first humans were just beginning to look beyond the physical world and into the metaphysical, the realm of the spirit. Imagine, if you will, our early ancestors, huddled around a fire, their bellies full of whatever they've managed to hunt that day. They gaze up at the stars, the same stars we see today, and they begin to wonder. What's out there? They ask, their voices echoing into the night. What's beyond the visible world? And so the seeds of animism were planted. Animism, from the Latin animus, meaning spirit or soul, is the belief that everything in the world, from the tiniest pebble to the grandest mountain, has a spirit. It's thought to have arisen with the first humans as they began to perceive a spiritual dimension to the world around them. Our ancestors lived in a world where the line between the physical and the spiritual was blurred. They lived in constant interaction with the spirits of the world around them, offering them respect and seeking their guidance. They believed that every rock, tree, and river had a spirit, a consciousness, and that by communicating with these spirits, they could gain insight into the world and their place within it. In the prehistoric cultures, animism was the norm. It was the lens through which they viewed the world. They didn't see a world of dead matter, but a living, breathing universe teeming with spiritual life. It was a world where the wind had a personality, the sun had a purpose, and the thunder had a temper. But don't just think of animism as a relic of the past. It's not some dusty old belief system that's been left behind by modern society. In fact, you'll find traces of animism in many of the world's religions today, from the animistic deities of Hinduism to the nature spirits of Shintoism. In essence, animism is as old as humanity itself, the first whisper of spiritualism in our collective history. And while we may have come a long way since those early days, the spirit of animism lives on, reminding us of our deep connection to the world around us. Animism wasn't a local fad, oh no, it was a worldwide phenomenon. Imagine, if you will, a time before the internet, before telephones, even before the humble pigeon post. Yes, we're talking about a time when the fastest mode of communication was probably a pair of very worn-out sandals. And yet, in this seemingly disconnected world, a belief system took root that spanned continents and cultures. From the dense forests of the Americas, where native tribes whispered tales of the living earth and sky, to the sun-drenched plains of Africa, where tribes revered the spirits dwelling in every rock and river, animism was the belief du jour. It wasn't just a passing fad, but a fundamental understanding of the world. Across the vast expanse of the Pacific, in the verdant islands of Oceania, Communities revered the spirits of their ancestors, believing them to inhabit every tree, every stone, every gust of wind. But let's not forget our friends in the Far East, in the ancient civilizations of China and Japan, where animism merged with ancestor worship and shaped their unique cultural and religious landscape. And then there were the Celts. The Celts. Over in the chilly wilds of Europe, they were chatting up trees and rivers, believing them to be brimming with spirits. They didn't stop at nature, mind you. Tools, weapons, household objects, everything was alive and kicking according to our Celtic friends. So you see, animism was not a belief held by a single tribe or a solitary culture. It was a global sensation, a spiritual understanding that resonated with human societies across the world. In a world devoid of hashtags and viral trends, animism was the original cross-cultural phenomenon. Animism, then, was the world's first international trend, long before the advent of social media. And now let's delve into the heart of animism. What makes a rock more than just a rock? An excellent question. In the realm of animism, a rock isn't just a lump of hardened minerals. It's a living, breathing entity filled with its own spiritual essence. This essence, or mana, as some cultures call it, is no different from the one that resides within you and me, or the fox that just made off with your picnic basket. In the eyes of an animist, everything, and I do mean everything, is brimming with this spiritual essence. It's not just confined to animals and plants, but extends to rocks, rivers, the wind, the sun, and even man-made objects. Yes, you heard it right. That old grandfather clock ticking away in your hallway could be having a more vibrant spiritual life than you. I'm sure it's got some fascinating tales to tell, if only we knew how to listen. Now, this belief in a ubiquitous spiritual essence doesn't just make animists the life of the party, it also fosters a profound respect for nature. After all, if you believe that the tree in your backyard is a sentient being, you're less likely to chop it down to make room for a new barbecue pit. Animists see themselves as merely one strand in the great web of life. They do not place humans above other creatures or elements of nature. We're all in this together, sharing the same spiritual essence, the same joys and sorrows, the same existential dread about Monday mornings. This interconnectedness extends beyond the physical world, reaching into the realms of the ancestors and the nature spirits. For animists, the spirit world isn't some far-off place you go when you kick the bucket. It's right here, interwoven with our reality, just a heartbeat away. And let's not forget about reciprocity, the old give and take. Animists understand that they're part of a delicate balance. They take from nature to survive, but they also give back in the form of offerings, respect, and stewardship. They understand that every action has a spiritual consequence and strive to live in a way that maintains harmony in the cosmic web of life. So, to sum it up, if you're ever invited to an animist's house, don't be surprised if they introduce you to their pet rock or ask you to say sorry to the rose bush you just stepped on. It's all part of their worldview, a recognition of the spiritual essence in all things, the respect for nature and the interconnectedness of life. In an animist's eyes, the world is a buzzing network of spiritual energy, a cosmic web of life. And remember, if you ever feel lonely, there's probably a spirit or two hanging around just waiting for a chat. But what happened to animism? Did it fade into obscurity as organized religions rose to power? Well, not exactly. It's more like animism took a quiet seat at the back of the religious auditorium, subtly influencing the performances on center stage. Now let's take a pause and ponder. If animism was the first religion, then it's quite likely that elements of it seeped into subsequent belief systems, isn't it? And that's exactly what happened. In fact, it's quite fascinating to see how animism has left its fingerprints on modern religions. Take, for instance, the concept of souls in Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. The very idea that a non-physical entity exists within us aligns with the animist belief that everything has a spirit. Now, isn't that a cheeky little link? And then there's Shintoism, a religion native to Japan. Shintoism is essentially animism dressed up in a kimono. It holds that everything in nature, from rocks to rivers, possesses a divine spirit. So it's safe to say that animism is alive and kicking in the land of the rising sun, but the influence of animism isn't just limited to the spiritual realm, it's also made its way into our everyday cultural practices. Ever knocked on wood to avoid jinxing something? Well, congratulations. You've participated in a tradition rooted in animism. The belief that spirits reside in trees is what gave birth to this superstition. And let's not forget about the tradition of toasting before drinking. This too has its roots in animism. Ancient people would clink their glasses together in the hope that the noise would scare away any evil spirits lurking in their drinks. So the next time you toast, remember you're not just celebrating, you're also performing an exorcism. Even in the realm of literature and film, echoes of animism reverberate. Enchanted objects and talking animals, hallmarks of fairy tales and fantasy genres, are clear nods to the animistic belief that all objects and animals possess a spirit. So, you see, animism might not be in the limelight, but it's definitely not forgotten. It's like that one actor who never gets the lead role but always steals the show with their performance. It's been woven into the fabric of our cultures, our religions, and even our superstitions. But here's the kicker. We often think of animism as a primitive belief system, something our ancestors followed before they discovered real religions. But the truth is, animism is not just a part of our past, it's a part of our present. And it's likely to be a part of our future too. So next time you're at a religious ceremony, look closely. You might just spot a touch of animism. But animism isn't just a relic of the past. It's alive and kicking in the 21st century. Now you might be wondering, how, dear narrator, has this ancient belief system managed to keep up with the Kardashians? Well, let's dive into that, shall we? In this day and age, we're seeing a resurgence of animism, particularly in the context of environmentalism and sustainability. With the rapid degradation of our natural world, more and more people are trying to reconnect with nature, and what better way to do that than by embracing the belief that everything, yes, everything, from the towering redwood to the tiny pebble underfoot, has a spirit. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everyone's running around chatting with rocks and hugging trees, though it wouldn't be the oddest thing we've seen this century. What I mean is that people are starting to acknowledge the interconnectedness of all things. They're recognizing that our actions have consequences, not just for us, but for the entire planet. And this isn't just some fringe movement. Oh no, this is happening on a global scale. From the eco-warriors of the Amazon rainforest fighting to protect their ancestral lands, to the urban dwellers turning their balconies into green oases, animism is making a comeback. We're seeing a shift in mindset, a move towards a more holistic and sustainable way of living. In fact, some of the principles of animism have even found their way into mainstream religions. There's a growing movement within Christianity, for example, advocating for creation care, the belief that it's our duty to look after the earth, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. So you see, animism isn't stuck in the past, it's evolving, adapting, finding its place in our modern world. And as we face the realities of climate change and the need for a more sustainable way of living becomes ever more urgent, perhaps it's not so surprising that we're turning to the wisdom of our ancestors. In a world grappling with climate change, perhaps we could all learn a thing or two from the animists. And from our understanding of nature to our relationship with objects, animism has left an indelible mark on human consciousness. Animism is like that great aunt you've never met, but whose influence is palpable at every family gathering. She's in the quirky traditions, the peculiar superstitions, and the oddball family lore. A ghostly presence shaping us from the shadows. Now let's take a little jaunt down history lane. Our ancestors, those early humans, saw spirits in every rustling leaf and murmuring creek. This wasn't just a poetic way to pass the time, it was a survival mechanism. Animism, you see, fostered a deep respect for nature and its potential dangers. It's no coincidence that societies with animistic traditions often have strong environmental ethics. After all, it's much harder to justify chopping down a sacred tree than a mere collection of wood and leaves. And let's not forget about the impact of animism on art and storytelling. Would we have the enchanting tales of talking animals and sentient objects without the animistic belief that everything has a soul? I dare say not. Animism has inspired countless works of literature, film and art, from the anthropomorphic characters of Aesop's fables to the haunting landscapes of Hayao Miyazaki's films. Even in our modern, tech-saturated world, echoes of animism reverberate. We name our cars, shout at our computers, and grieve for our broken smartphones. It's not just because we're all a bit balmy, it's because deep down we feel an emotional connection to the objects around us. That's animism, my friends, alive and well in the 21st century. And what about the countless indigenous cultures around the world who still practice animism today? Their deeply held beliefs remind us of the importance of respecting nature, of listening to the spirits that inhabit our world, and of acknowledging the interconnectedness of all things. We might not all be animists, but we certainly live in a world shaped by it. So the next time you find yourself cursing at your uncooperative toaster, remember you're not just being eccentric, you're participating in a tradition as old as humanity itself. So there you have it. Animism, the belief system that sees a soul in every nook and cranny of the universe. It's a bit like believing your toaster has feelings, but with a bit more spiritual gravitas. As we've journeyed through this video, we've explored the mystical question of animism, delving into the dawn of spiritual consciousness and seeing how it's manifested itself around the world. Quite the globe-trotting adventure, wouldn't you say? We've unpacked the principles of animism, which, let's face it, are a bit more complex than don't step on the cracks or you'll break your mother's back. We've seen how it's influenced modern religions, proving that it's not just some ancient relic, but a living, breathing belief system that shaped countless cultures and societies. Then we've stepped into the 21st century, where animism is not just surviving, but thriving. It's not just about worshipping trees and rocks anymore. Now we've got smartphones and electric cars to consider. The digital age hasn't diminished the spirit of animism, it's just given it a shiny new playground. We've also looked at the impact of animism, and let me tell you, it's not small potatoes. This belief system has shaped our relationship with nature, influenced our art, our literature, and even our politics. It's been a driving force behind some of the world's most profound philosophical debates and has sparked countless revolutions in thought. But perhaps most importantly, it's taught us to see the world in a different light, to see the spirit in everything, from the grandest mountain to the humblest pebble. To remember that we're not alone in this universe, even when we're just sipping our morning coffee. And the next time you feel a strange kinship with your favorite coffee mug, remember, it's not just you, it might just be the spirit of animism